Today on the Big 6 in 60, Sam Darnold injured just days before playing the 49ers.
It's going to be a pain tolerance thing here for Sam Darnold, and it may very well have just been the slightest tweak.
The Bills go to Denver to play the top-seeded Broncos.
They've kind of rewritten the narrative, right? Bo Nix, with the overdog sort of narrative that he created for this team.
And the Hoosiers come in as big favorites for the national championship.
Indiana was favored by 7.5, so in that time frame, the spread has gone up.
This is the Big 6 in 60, the 6 biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Some concerning news out of Seattle to start the show. Sam Darnold picked up an oblique injury in practice this week, but still plans to play against the 49ers this weekend. The Seahawks Squad Show tells us how the injury changes things going into the matchup.
It kind of came out that he walked out onto the practice field with like one of those Theraguns. And kind of putting it on his shoulder, kind of downplaying it as he was going, but the Seahawks put him on the practice or the injury list anyway. Then he did speak to the media, and he mentioned that he felt something when he was kind of throwing against air, I think was his exact term that he used. And originally it was actually on his left side, even though the Theragun was on his right shoulder. So I'm a little bit foggy on those details specifically, but he expects to play on Saturday. There was a 30-minute period where the Seahawks were like, uh-oh, what's happening here? But then the moment that Sam Darnold spoke, he kind of a little bit put those rumors to bed that he still expects to play. But Corbin, you kind of mentioned it off the top there. Even if he does expect to play, even if this is something on the minor side of things, in terms of the severity of it, an oblique injury is not something to scoff at as a starting NFL quarterback.
No, especially when it is on your plant leg, on your drive leg. And so, look, I'm sharing this from experience. I had an oblique strain during a baseball season when I was in high school, and I played first base. So luckily I didn't have to throw that much. And thank goodness, because that was the most painful motion. It wasn't swinging a bat, it was throwing. And you always felt the twinge when you were planting that plant foot down and getting ready to fire. So it's going to be a pain tolerance thing here for Sam Darnold. And it may very well have just been the slightest tweak. And by Saturday, he might be out there throwing and feeling perfectly fine. But this is an injury that can be really touchy. It can also be one that feels good at the start of the game, and then all it takes is just one throw where you mess with that area just enough, and then it bothers you the rest of the game. And so I'm going to be curious to see what that looks like. I'm sure he'll be able to gut it out, but it really just depends, what kind of grade strain that we're talking about there. And I do think that they should be happy that this happened with 2 full days for them to do some treatment on, rather than the game being a day and a half or whatever. That extra time, if it would have been an afternoon game versus an evening game, those extra couple hours can be a big difference when you're looking at an injury like that. So I guess the good news would be that, it wasn't something that bothered me too much when I was running with it. So I don't know that it's going to impact his movement stuff that much. It's that plant foot and being able to drive out of that plant foot. That is where you're probably going to feel that if you're Sam Darnold.
Yeah, well, it worried the Seahawks enough to A, put him on the list, and B, to even have Drew Lock take some first-team reps today at practice. So, Rob, what's your worry meter as of right now for in terms of not the game in general, but Sam Darnold's ability to play at a full capacity level for him?
Full capacity? It's probably more like a 7 or 8. I mean, honestly, I just think that, as Corbin just talked about, it's the throwing motion. Mm-hmm. What I worry about is the fact that the 49ers, even in a humbling 13-3 loss in Santa Clara 2 weeks ago, They still had 2 sacks on Sam Darnold. What happens when you have a defender hit his legs and he is in that throwing motion? That's just going to stretch those abdominal muscles that much more potentially. Again, I just think that it is concerning. Now, look, I have a great deal of faith in Drew Lock, perhaps more than a lot of people do. I've been a Drew Lock fan going back to his days at Missouri, but it doesn't matter if you have the best backup quarterback in the world. It is still going to completely throw off the timing between the quarterback, whoever he may be, and your wide receivers. So this is concerning news. Sam Darnold, as Corbin mentioned, is a tough guy. He is going to gut it out, but it is concerning. And as Turbo mentioned, as we talked in the preview here, it does feel like a little bit of the storyline here just makes things that much more interesting. As I mentioned a moment ago, and I think that as many of us are going to be kind of talking about, I think that the Seattle's defense is enough that they should be able to kind of control this game and allow Sam Darnold to play, even if he is at only 75%. But there is no question about it. I felt very, very confident the Seahawks were going to win this game a couple of hours ago. When this news broke, I definitely was more concerned. I think the Seahawks fans should be concerned as well.
So, Turbo, you think this is all just mind games for Mike McDonald because of the whole Fred Warner thing that San Francisco did? He was never going to play anyway, and they still put him out there to practice. So is this kind of Seattle's response to that?
Well, look, Mike McDonald doesn't strike me as a mind game type of dude, okay? Sure. He strikes me as a straight up, straight shooter, straightforward, no time for games type of person, man. But I do feel like, this is a non-story. Sam Darnold is going to get the Toradol shot, or he's going to take the pill. He's going to put it under his tongue before the game, and he's going to go out there and play. That's what it's going to be. I'm just giving y'all what it is. Okay, this is the truth, okay? Now, I've had the oblique injury, very similar to Corbin. What it can impact is rotation. And and even as a runner, it may not be necessarily on the cut, but that torque that happens after the cut can really be painful, and obviously contact is worse than anything. Okay, yeah. But I think this. I don't know what happened. I don't know if those details have been shared with the public. This to me sounds. Does he have kids? This to me sounds like he was wrestling at the house, with the kids. And trying to get it out before it's time to focus on the game, and boom, yeah. Something strange happened. All right. But at the end of the day, I don't, the concern level for me is really low. Okay. Because we're going to the NFC Championship game. He knows it. Everybody knows it. And I think this is something to cause a little bit of a distraction for the 49ers. Not that they won't be locked in. We respect their team and everything like that, but I don't have a high concern for this at all. I did not know, though, I will admit, that Drew Lock was taking first-team reps. That now changes the dynamic slightly. That lets me know that, okay, this dude is he's really sore right now.
Yeah, so from my understanding, and I kind of lie somewhere in between you guys, I don't have a high concern level, but I don't think it's nothing either. I don't think that this is just like, he's fine, they're just putting him on for no reason or whatever. It sounds like it's more precautionary than anything else. This is just my total read on it. Just I don't have any insight or anything like that. This is my feel about it. But I like what Corbett said about one weird hit or one weird little twinge, or even just playing more often later in the game. It could be one of those things where it's like you feel fine at kickoff, and then you have to make a big throw in the fourth quarter, and it's not the same, especially on a relatively cold night. It's not going to be freezing on Saturday night in Seattle, but it's one of those things where it's like, man, it's not nothing. But I think he's going to play. I don't think there's a ton of risk that he's not going to be out there to at least start this game. The question is, how much is it going to affect him when he's playing? I think that's the biggest thing for me, because as you guys know, playing at this highest level, it's the slightest downtick from how you're even just feeling makes a huge difference, especially in such a big game that they're going to be playing in. So how much does it change the game plan? Even if Sam Darnold is out there, how close are we to be like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. You're going to throw Drew Lock out there to give you a better chance to win. I don't know. I don't know any of those questions, but I don't think there's a risk at him not starting this game. I'll put it that way. I don't know, Corbin, if you feel the same way at that.
Yeah, look, I'll be shocked if Drew Lock plays any snaps in this football game. I don't think we are at that point unless Darnold just goes out and just plays horrible football the first quarter or so, and it's clear he's not getting zipped behind the ball, and it's clearly impacting his mechanics. And if that's happening, then Seattle has to strongly consider that. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. And the fact that it sounds like Locke got the first team reps more because Darnold, they were just being cautious, like, hey, this is not the day to push it. It's our walkthrough practice or whatever the next step up from being a walkthrough is, last practice of the week. I'm going to go in and do some rehab work. That, somebody's got to play quarterback during the rest of practice. So I'm not necessarily alarmed on that front. I just think that this is something to watch where, all it takes is one or two throws being impacted by this that make your mechanics not quite right. And then the ball sails on you and you throw a pick or something. Those are the things that you have to consider here. But I'm kind of with you, Anders, in the sense that, to me, it's kind of a middle of the pack thing. I think he plays. I think he's going to be able to do a lot of the stuff he normally does. But pain tolerance is going to be a part of the equation here, like you have with any injury.
Yeah, and it's also worth pointing out, I think Ian Furness pointed this out on today's show for KJR. When the news broke, we were on the air. And he was saying that if he was really that injured, they wouldn't have had him speak to the media as well. That's just not a very Seahawk thing to do. In general, if a guy is at risk of not playing, they don't have them speak to the media. The fact that Sam Darnold was talking to the media right after all this broke kind of tells you, including him very much being like, yeah, I'm feeling okay. That tells you that it's probably not as big of a deal as it could have been. But Rob, how much is this going to change their game plan? Even if he's at 90% of what his feeling in terms of his oblique and how that's going, do you think that changes anything at all? Are they going to run the football even more than they did in the Week 18 game?
Yeah, and gentlemen, I hate to play the Chicken Little, the sky is falling down here role. I just think the fact that Sam Darnold spoke after practice does not mean a damn thing.
Okay.
I mean, I don't care if you got hit by a bus. I would have Sam Darnold out there talking to the media the same way the 49ers had Fred Warner out there, showing all these clips of him working out, even though, as Kyle Shanahan said, Fred Warner, the superstar middle linebacker for the 49ers, of course, is not going to be on the field against the Seahawks in this game, despite what all of the social media buzz was. But the fact that Sam Darnold ran off the field during practice, the fact that he was, as you mentioned, had the gun on his right shoulder, what we saw in his press conference, and that when he adjusted his cap, it was with his right hand, not his left side. I think that there are reasons to be concerned about this. Again, I mean, the 49ers, the last place defense in all of the NFL when it comes to sacking quarterbacks, still hit Sam Darnold. As I mentioned before, 2 sacks this past game, 1 sack in the game in which they beat the Seahawks, of course, in Lumen Field. I think that there is concerning. And as Corbin and I talked about, this is a game in which I think that Seattle is going to try to get ahead of the 49ers early. And one of the biggest, easiest ways of doing so is throwing a ball over the top early on, trying to get an explosive play. Again, when you have to really rear back and throw the football, that's where you're going to have to generate some of that torque that Turbo talked about. So, look, I do fully expect Sam Darnold to start this game. I think he is going to be able to finish this game. At the same time, the fact that he was not listed as probable, he was listed as questionable, I think that Seahawks fans should be a little bit concerned. I can promise you the 49ers are that much more excited about the possibility that Seattle's quarterback could go. And that to me is actually a little bit more the storyline that I want to make sure that we kind of at least acknowledge here
Mm-hmm.
is what kind of distraction is this for the rest of the Seahawks? Because they saw their starting quarterback trot himself off the field. Do they have any concern after I'm sure they are feeling very confident after, I know it was 13-3, the way they beat the 49ers a couple of weeks ago, but it felt like a lot more than that. Do they have any, blip in their confidence radar at this point because of what Sam Darnold is? I mean, just look at the way that the Seahawks media, the way the Seahawks personnel who were standing alongside of Sam Darnold, the way they looked as he was kind of sharing this news about his injury. They look concerned as well.
It's divisional round time in the NFL playoffs, and FanDuel is in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. Visit FanDuel.com, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back into the Big 6 and 60. The Rams have plenty of playoff experience on the roster and the coaching staff, while the Bears are newcomers coming off their biggest comeback yet against the Packers. Who comes out on top in Chicago? Our hosts with Locked On Rams and Bears preview the matchup.
I come into this game from a Bears perspective feeling like the Rams are the favorite for a reason. Like, they are the better team. I don't come into this game thinking like, oh, the Bears should be able to take care of business and beat the Rams. I come in feeling more like, oh, Chicago needs to get a little lucky, maybe the way they did late against Green Bay, and they can potentially win this game, but I don't feel confident about them coming in and being, quote unquote, the better team, but it just comes down to maybe being the luckier team. Well, how do you feel about the stability of the Rams coming off of the Panthers game?
Yeah, I think your instincts are about right. And the thing that I would add to it, Lauren, is that the Rams have allowed other teams that might not be, player for player as talented as maybe they are to hang around for a while. The Rams really haven't played a 4-quarter football game in the better part of about 6 weeks. They've had moments where they've been terrific, where they've had even 2 or 3 or 3.5 quarters where they've been terrific, but they have not put a full game together really since probably, mid-November. They've been really struggling in one aspect of the game or another. The one thing that has been pretty consistent throughout all of it has been the offense, but their secondary has all sorts of question marks in it. Their special teams have all sorts of question marks in it. And, we all watched all the games this weekend. The Rams were fortunate to leave Carolina with a win, despite being 10.5-point favorites, despite having a chance to kind of end the game in the first half. They let a team hang around, and that has been something that they've struggled with the last, 6 weeks or so.
There's some real similarities there between both teams because I think I would describe some of the Bears' struggles the same way, right? It's not one thing every week that's holding them back, like, the offensive line or whatever. And that's why the offense starts slow or whatever. Like, every week it's like a little bit of something different, a drop pass here, a penalty there, a miscue here and there, that just like you're kind of waiting for the team to just kind of get its stuff together and put together that performance. And yet they haven't been able to consistently do that for 4 quarters. So I'm really curious how, I guess, what version of both teams we get in Sunday's matchup, because I think of the Rams as certainly the more playoff experienced veteran team that I look at, like McVay and Stafford over there, and I say, wow, that's a team I really have a lot of trust in, that they're going to figure it out in the playoffs. And yet the Bears have done this every single week through the regular season, and now in the playoffs that they'll stink for 3 or 4 quarters, and then in the final 5 minutes of the game they look like the best team in the NFL and find a way to win. And it's just a question of like, will that luck run out against the Rams, or will they keep rolling and find another way to pull off the miraculous comeback?
Yeah, you said something that I've kind of hung my hat on really for years doing Locked On here, especially, the Rams thankfully have been pretty good most of the time that I've been here, and they go into the playoffs and we're having these discussions frequently. And I'm a big believer in playoff games frequently. I wouldn't say always, but frequently come down to who has the better coach, who has the better quarterback. I like the Rams' chances in both of those categories in a lot of matchups. Now, this one is a little more interesting. I think that last week when they played Carolina, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford, I don't think there's much of a contest right there. And Dave Canales has done a good job in Carolina, but he has not had the experience that Sean McVay have. The Bears I look at a little bit differently because Ben Johnson clearly has figured out how to turn this team from what they were a year ago into what they are now. So he obviously is a very, very good coach. Now, the experience factor tilts heavily towards McVay. Caleb Williams, we got to see a lot of him out here in LA, and I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's really good. Now, he's a little bit like this at times, but he's really good. Now, do I think Matthew Stafford is better? Yeah, but I think the gap in both of those things has gotten far more narrow than I think we would have thought about a month or 2 months ago. And the Bears scare the daylights out of me. And I think I saw this on TV on Saturday night, but they've won the game 7 times despite being behind at the 2-minute warning. That's bananas. That is really, really bizarre. And once, sure, you get lucky. 2 times, yeah, okay, wow. 7's not luck. 7 means you have a knack in how to do those things. So, the Rams have had trouble putting teams away, and if they don't put this Bears team away, I am concerned that Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson will find a way to do what they've done for an 8th time.
Yeah, the fun stat coming out of the playoff game last week was the Bears have played the Packers 3 times this season. They have led for 0 offensive snaps and won 2 of those games. They did not led in and did not snap the ball on offense with a lead against the Green Bay Packers this season, and they're 2-1 in those matchups. So it's just that like sliver of a doubt that's always going to be in opponents' heads, and I think Bears fans are left like saying like, well, when can they have a game that's not going to be that desperate at the end? And you mentioned briefly you're confident the Rams offense is locked in, good to go. Maybe some concerns in the secondary and the special teams. I guess does that lend its idea to maybe a little bit more of a shootout type of game, not necessarily like 41-38, but just that maybe are you concerned about the Bears offense maybe getting rolling a little bit quicker than it did last week because of these Rams secondary concerns, or is it feeling like, well, the Panthers were one thing, but maybe against Chicago, they can right the ship a little bit?
No, if anything, I think it's going to get worse. I think that when you look at what the Bears are going to bring to the table relative to what Carolina brought to the, this is a problem that they have had all season long, especially when you go up against a team that has quality wide receivers. The Bears, in my opinion, have 2 very good wide receivers. So the Rams have their best corner right now is Kobe Durant, maybe. And there just isn't a lot of strength in the team down there. Emmanuel Forbes has been getting taken advantage of most of the season. Akilla Witherspoon, who's kind of a good play, bad play guy, he's out for the playoffs. He broke his clavicle again, so he's done. So you're getting even into depth at a position where you didn't have a lot of frontline, success to begin with. So I really do worry about it. The Rams defense has a really quality pass rush, but if they can't get home and get home really quickly, it doesn't really matter all that much. So I think that Caleb Williams is a better quarterback than we've seen. Certainly I think he's better than Kirk Cousins. I think he's better than Bryce Young. I think he's better than Jacoby Brissett, the guys that we've seen over the last few weeks that the Rams have played. All of those guys have kind of lit it up against the Rams. So I do expect a game that's scored. I know it's supposed to be cold. I know there's the chance of snow. So that may mitigate some of that stuff. But if the Rams are going to win this game, I think they're going to have to be in the 30s because that's just the way that they've been playing lately. And I certainly think the Bears are capable of getting up there with them.
Yeah, the problem for Chicago is that their defense is not good. Like, this is not a good Bears defense at all. It's sometimes passable. I think that's how I would describe it. It's not good. It's sometimes passable. And it seems like every week they go into the game a little bit stubborn. Dennis Allen's a little bit stubborn sometimes as a defensive coordinator and says like, hey, we're going to come out and we're going to play a lot of man coverage, but we don't have a pass rush. So by halftime, we're down 3 scores and we got to adjust to the second half, and then they'll play more zone and they'll blitz a little bit more. And somehow every single week they come to the same realizations that the stuff they were trying to start the game isn't going to work. So that's a real concern, I think, for Bears fans coming into this game, that like they're going to try and match up their injured bad secondary one-on-one with Puka Nacua on the outside and feel like that's not going to go very well. Feeling like they got to throw as many bodies as they can at him. And once you do that, Devontae Adams and Colby Parkinson and everybody else is going to be open as well. So I have a feeling this Rams offense isn't going to have too much trouble getting rolling. It's been a question of like, can they do that for 4 quarters? Because we saw even Green Bay last week scored 3 touchdowns on their first 3 drives and then 6 points the rest of the game, I think it was, and settling for field goals in the second half. punting a bunch in the second half when they seemed unstoppable in the first half. And I guess I'm curious, when you see the inconsistency from the Lions, is it mostly defense that you see the ups and downs, or are there times when the offense takes the foot off the gas a little bit, or how consistent have they been for 4 quarters?
The offense has been really good almost the entire year. It is a really fun offense to watch. It is multifaceted, and you mentioned, when they drafted Puka Nacua a few years ago, it's like, okay, that's kind of an interesting guy, and let's see what it looks like. And he shows up, and you're like, oh, he's way better than a 5th round draft pick. This is exciting. Well, he's morphed into quite arguably the best wide receiver in the entire NFL, and he is the trajectory of his ability keeps getting better and better and better. Like you mentioned, Devontae Adams. If Devontae Adams is your second best wide receiver, you got a pretty good crew of wide receivers, because he's had led the league in touchdown receptions along the way. They got a couple, if not 3 different tight ends that can catch passes. They've got 2 running backs in Blake Corum and Kyron Williams who are pretty good. And then you got a Matthew Stafford who there's really nothing he hasn't seen before. So you're not really going to, put him in a position where he's trying to figure out what it is that he's looking at. He's just a really experienced quarterback. If the offense stalls, I will be surprised. They're able to move. They're able to score. They're really aggressive. Matthew Stafford is, I think he's going to win the MVP, or at least he's going to finish in the top 2 of the MVP race. I don't think that the Rams will lose this game because it's 14-13. I don't think that's unless the weather goes haywire, which is always a possibility. But I expect the game to be played in the 30s, and if they can get a stop or 2 more than the Bears, I like their chances.
Good chance the score is higher than the temperature for the game on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
Josh Allen is still trying to make his first Super Bowl, this time with no Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, or Joe Burrow standing in his way. Will Bo Nix and the top-seeded Broncos stop him this time? Locked On Bills and Broncos looks into the matchup.
These two teams playing in what you and I were kind of just talking about a little bit off camera feels like a pretty wide open landscape in the NFL. These two teams made it to the Elite Eight. This is not new for the Buffalo Bills. It's very new over the last 10 years for the Denver Broncos. And I'm a sucker for a good, connection to pop culture, to my upbringing, especially, Joe. This matchup is reminding me so much of, I don't know how much you watched it back in the day, but D2, the Mighty Ducks, the Ducks as Team USA going up against Iceland, a little too big for their britches, got their butts kicked in the first matchup. And from the Broncos perspective, at least, this is your second shot at Iceland, right? To get past these guys. So it's going to be fun either way. But look, I think we're both looking forward to seeing how these two teams handle the pressure. The Broncos playing at home in a playoff game for the first time in a decade, and the Bills trying to be road warriors here.
Yeah, that's the story for the Bills. They got to do it on the road this year. And with the Chargers getting bounced, there's no more home games for the Bills to play. Now, listen, I saw D2 back in the 90s, man. It's been a while since I've watched that one, but we did get a chance to see this game, like you mentioned, a year ago in Buffalo. I got a feeling it's going to be a lot tighter than 31-7. Obviously, we all remember that opening drive touchdown, right? Troy Franklin. And then the Bills were able to kind of handle it from there. But in Denver this time, which I know was a goal of Sean Payton, he said it, right? He's like, how do we get this game at our home stadium? Well, here it is.
Here it is. You take down the Kansas City Chiefs, take care of business all throughout the season, winning a ton of one-score games, and kind of having to deal with this fraud label, right? That's where the Broncos are at right now. They are home underdogs for this game, which is totally fine. They've been home underdogs a number of times this year, and sometimes it's been justified, and other times they've kind of rewritten the narrative, right? Bo Nix, with the overdog sort of narrative that he created for this team, and I think it's great for both of these teams, right? It adds to the sort of theatrics of everything going into it. The Buffalo Bills, they have every reason to have bulletin board material, right? I mean, Josh Allen, can he get it done in the playoffs without Patrick Mahomes, without Lamar Jackson, without Joe Burrow? I bet you guys are sick and tired of hearing about that kind of thing, because it's not about those guys being there. It's about your team getting the job done. It's exactly what the Broncos have always kind of dealt with, right? Whether it's John Elway, whether it's Peyton Manning, or now Bo Nix, it's like you've got to deal with that outside perception of your team, maybe not always necessarily being a unanimously positive one. And how do you respond in the games? You and I talked about this. It feels like both of these Broncos and Bills teams are really good teams, but not necessarily dominant teams. You've just got to find a way to go out there and win on the biggest stage possible.
Well, I can tell you that we're definitely tired of hearing about Lamar Jackson. The Bills have played the Ravens twice in the playoffs and beat them both times. So it's really Patrick Mahomes. They played Burrow one time, and that was some really unique circumstances in that game. It's Mahomes, right? That's the Everest. It's really not Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So that's the one we want to correctly go away, because both times Josh has had the chance to beat Lamar in the postseason. He's gotten that done. But I think you point out a really good parallel between both of these football teams where maybe neither one is dominant. Even the Denver Broncos is the number one seed that won 14 of 17 games. And certainly the Bills had a good record, 12-5, wasn't good enough to win the East this year. But they've had some vulnerable moments. They lost 30-13 to the Dolphins. They lost to the Falcons. They couldn't get it done late in the game against the Eagles and Texans, as well as the Patriots in the first matchup at home. So they've had these moments where they've shown some vulnerability, but obviously 12-5, they win a lot of games. And there's been a lot of resiliency along the way, which I think, Broncos country can certainly appreciate with some of the games they've been able to pull off this year. And so, look, whatever people want to say to minimize these teams, they're playing in the divisional round for a reason. And obviously, Denver comes into this game off that bye, which feels really good for them when you got a Bills team that played a really physical road game last week against Jacksonville. Lost a couple of receivers for the season, a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, and they'll have to do it, in a short week, which, thanks NFL for that. I think we'll probably play on Sunday, but, an advantage for Denver in this game for sure is the rest component.
It is. And that's something that has been a factor for Sean Payton coach teams throughout the decades. I mean, whether he was with the Saints or now with the Broncos, Sean Payton coming off of a bye has been very successful in the postseason, specifically 4-0 when he's had a bye week. So it'll be interesting to see how that's approached, because really, and we'll get into the individual matchups in this game, but really what I'm interested to find out is whether or not the Broncos can keep that resilient narrative going. I mean, you mentioned it for the Buffalo Bills, and that's why I think this is such an intriguing matchup on paper. Even if you're just an NFL fan watching this game, these two teams, you can point to Josh Allen. I think that's why a lot of folks are saying, hey, I like the Bills in this matchup. They've got Josh Allen. He's battle tested in the playoffs. This could be his year, sort of thing. But I think when you look at both teams, it's that resilience, no matter who they're going up against, that you feel like gives each team a chance to win every game. I mean, the defenses have stepped up at different times this season. The quarterbacks have stepped up. If it's an offensive playmaker that needs to have a big game, I mean, for the Bills, it's James Cook. For the Broncos, it's been different guys, Cortland Sutton, RJ Harvey. So these two teams have shown resilience in the way that they can win games however you want to play it. If you want to get into a shootout, these two teams can do a shootout. If you want to have a defensive battle, these two teams will play in low-scoring games and just make a clutch play late. So that's what I'm looking forward to here, is that chess match aspect of things. Whereas last year, like you said, things really got away from the Broncos after that 7-0 lead, happy to be here sort of mentality, made way too many mistakes. How much have they grown from those experiences, and can they put that into practice against a team that, they've been here before and they've got goals on obviously getting further, but now it's on your turf.
Yeah, and look, the Bo Nix, he has 7 game-winning drives and 5 fourth-quarter comebacks this year. We know that there's a clutch gene with Bo Nix, and this is a Bills team that's had some huge fourth-quarter deficits against New England, against Baltimore, against Tampa Bay, against Cincinnati. They were able to kind of erase some big fourth-quarter and second-half deficits, and so we won't be celebrating this one until all the zeros are across the board. You got two teams that are going to battle and fight, and there's a lot at stake. Obviously, the AFC Championship game. And, I think both teams are capable of winning this thing. It's going to be about who goes out and executes, who goes out and doesn't make the back-breaking mistakes. We'll find out soon enough.
It's divisional round time in the NFL playoffs, and FanDuel is in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. Visit FanDuel.com, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The Indiana Hoosiers come into the national championship game off a pair of blowout wins, making them the favorites of more than a touchdown in Vegas against Miami. Thanks again to our friends at FanDuel. Will Indiana make it look easy again to win it all? Jacob Goins with Locked On Hoosiers certainly hopes so.
Indiana favored by 8.5 against the Miami Hurricanes. Now, that is the Friday morning line. It very well could change by the time that we get to Monday. But if you remember, and if you were with us on the live show after Indiana beat Oregon, we watched it go live, and Indiana was favored by 7.5. So in that time frame, the spread has gone up, which for those of you who are not in the betting world, that means Indiana's getting money. That means people are betting on the Hoosiers to beat Miami. And they absolutely should be. Why would they not be betting on Indiana, right? And the question starts to pop up of, is that too many points? Is that not enough? Is it disrespectful for what Indiana's been doing? Is it disrespectful to Miami to be 8.5-point underdogs in your home stadium in the national championship game? Maybe. And all of those could be true, or all of them could be false. And I think for Indiana, look, I know that you have been just waxing teams up to this point, but everything is off the table, in my opinion, in a national title game. Do I think Indiana's the better team? Yeah, absolutely I do. They're easily the better team, and I think they're 2 or 3 touchdowns better than Miami. But that doesn't mean you're going to beat them by that much. That doesn't mean you're going to beat them by double digits. That doesn't mean you're going to beat them at all. But I do think that Indiana should be favored, and I do think that the spread is pretty darn close for what this game could be. Now, funny enough, before the Oregon game, I said that I thought it would be low scoring. I thought it would be a defensive battle. I thought Indiana would have to pull away late, and I was completely wrong because Indiana just dismantled that Oregon defense one play at a time, and a pick 6 to start the game definitely helps your scoring props. But I don't know. This game against Miami could be a little bit more reserved, I guess, for Indiana. That's what I'm curious on. I don't think this is the case because we have not really seen this at all in the 2 years of the Curt Cignetti era in Bloomington. But does Indiana change their identity? Do they change their ways? Do they change how they play the game? Do they change how they call the game? Do they change how they prepare for the game? My instant answer, and I'm sure yours is the same, is, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. Curt Cignetti, all he does is talk about the process and trust the process and do the little things right. And if we play our game, we're going to win every time. I agree. But this is the national championship game. This is a different beast. This is a different animal. And that's a Miami team that might have the best defense you've seen all season long. And to be fair, Miami beat Ohio State by 10. You beat them by 3. Now, you can say whatever you want. It was a late garbage touchdown for Miami, and it absolutely was. But Miami beat Ohio State the same way that Indiana did. So these two teams in that regard are pretty close. But everybody wants to jump on the Hoosiers for what they have done against Alabama, what they did against Oregon, and then in comparison to Miami, struggling with Ole Miss, who's a talented team for sure, getting by Ohio State, and also beating Texas A&M in ugly fashion. Miami's got the game advantage on you. Indiana's got the game of rest upon it, right? And 2 blowouts that haven't been tested in, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whenever the Big Ten championship game was, right? That's the last time Indiana was tested as a football team. But if Indiana doesn't change the way they're doing things, if Indiana goes into this game the same way they have all year long, Hoosiers are going to win and win in a runaway. I don't see a world where the Hoosiers play their game and Miami takes them out of it so bad, because Miami's going to do something. They're a good football team. They're a very good football team. There's a reason they've won 3 in a row in the playoffs, and they're playing for a national championship game. They're here for a reason, and they will do things on both sides of the football that will throw Indiana off. And Indiana will do the same thing for Miami. At that point, it's about who responds. Who responds better, who adjusts better, and who has more on their tool belt? Who has more plays in the playbook? Who has one more execution to make it happen? I'm betting on Indiana. I'm betting on the Hoosiers because going against them is a terrible idea. Going against them it's a death wish under Kurt Signetti, frankly. And this year, of course, being undefeated and now making a quest to be the first ever 16-0 team in college football history. Hoosiers favored by 8.5. Total is 47.5. That's what both teams are projected to score combined in this football game. So, I mean, you're looking at, if Indiana's favored by 8.5, see if I can do quick math here. I mean, if you have 28-20, right, that's 48. That's about right. It's about 28-20, give or take, Indiana over Miami. I don't think it's that close. I'll give my full prediction on Monday, but I think Indiana is able to win more than that, buy more than that. I think Indiana scores more than that, and I also think they hold Miami to less than that as well. But betting lines are just betting lines. That's just people having fun. That's Vegas trying to make a dollar. They have absolutely zero impact. Well, I guess you could ask college basketball on how much impact they have. Wild stuff in the betting scandal world there. But in terms of the actual betting line and the result of the game, for as far as we know, it has zero impact here. This is about the Hoosiers executing and doing what they do. I think Indiana has the better quarterback. I think Indiana has the better running backs. I think Indiana has the better receiving core. I think Indiana has the better offensive line. I think Indiana has the better defensive line. I think Indiana has the better secondary. And most importantly, I think Indiana's got the better coach. So you're telling me with all those things that they're going to lose this game? They could. They absolutely could. But I'm not betting against them. Not here, not ever, not with Kurt Signetti. It's the Hoosiers and the Canes on Monday night in Miami. It is a road game for Indiana, but I'm hoping a lot of Hoosier fans are going to be there. I've heard from a ton of you that are making the trip. I hope you can get there. Use our friends over at Gametime if you're looking for last-minute tickets to get in the door. I know they're expensive, but you do what you got to do for something that could only happen once in our lifetimes, but I'd love to be there again.
It's divisional round time in the NFL playoffs, and FanDuel is in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. Visit FanDuel.com, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The Miami Hurricanes will play for a national championship on their home field Monday and have already taken down the defending champion Ohio State Buckeyes on their way to the title game. But the Canes still enter as big underdogs. Alex Dono of Locked On Canes doesn't like the disrespect he's seeing.
Lee, Indiana favored, last I checked on FanDuel, by 8.5 points in this game. Why is the number so big?
Well, the reason is they're blowing everyone out of late, especially in the playoffs. And when you do that, public, they see the score and they're like, wow, they beat Alabama, blowout. Then they beat Oregon, even bigger than the first time, blowout from the first play on. So public is obviously part of the perception. Now, remember, when Miami won their first title, 1983, that Nebraska team, everyone thought they were unbeatable. They were averaging 52 points per game. Multiple players, Terry Rozier. I'm sorry, not Terry Rozier, Mike Rozier.
We don't want to talk about scary Terry. Mike Rozier, it's fine.
Irving Fryer on the team, Turner Gill, the quarterback. Dean Steinkuhler was a offensive guard. I mean, Osborne was their coach. I mean, everyone thought, they were, I think Miami was either 4 or 5, depending on the poll going into that game. They had to have a lot of things happen in that game just to go right to even have a chance to play for a title. They were 11-point underdog. That team did have a weakness. They had not faced a passing attack that was proficient the entire season. So I think even though Nebraska is a little bit more explosive, Miami's going to face a team that really doesn't have one real weakness that you can exploit all game long. So that's one of the reasons why they're an 8.5-point favorite, beating an Alabama and an Oregon teams that people know and trust and rarely get blown out. And also combine that with Miami, I wouldn't say struggling, but had to win a very close game against Ole Miss in the last game. If they had won, let's say the look-ahead line, I think, was 5.5.
That's right.
Before Indiana played. If Miami had, say, won by double digits in that game and Indiana won by, let's just say 20, the line probably would have been 5.5, 6, not 8.5. It started at 7.5, now up to 8.5.
Does Miami playing in their home stadium, does that factor in at all with the way you view the Hurricanes' chances here?
Probably worth maybe 1.5 points. It could be anywhere from 50-50. Indiana, as we know, has a huge alumni base, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. And they'll travel and they'll buy tickets. So Miami's here. If you're buying tickets and you're a Miami fan and you're in South Florida, you don't have to travel. That cuts down on driving, flying, getting a hotel, transportation, things like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's anywhere from 60-40 either way. I think it's going to be like 55-45 Miami. Problem is you're not going to see it on TV. For instance, when I went to the Ohio State game, they were showing, I went back and watched the game again. They were showing Ohio State, the sideline, the whole side. I mean, they were just showing a couple little sections of Miami, but I was facing the Miami side, and it was like 95% on that side, Miami fans. And even on my side, there were a lot of Miami fans. In that case, I think Miami had about 30,000 of the 80,000 fans there, maybe even as many as 35. So the orange and the green just doesn't quite show up as much as, all red.
All right, so you mentioned Indiana is a team that doesn't really have any glaring weaknesses, maybe no real weaknesses to speak of. But are there areas you think Miami can match up well here, Lee? Because obviously everyone's going to look at what Miami's defensive line and Bain and Mesidor on the edges, what they can do against that Indiana O-line and against Fernando Mendoza.
I think they do. I think that if you look at what their weakness is their two offensive tackles. I think their two offensive tackles can get exposed. And also, Fernando Mendoza has been great. He has two weaknesses. He's going to release the ball on average a half a second slower than Trinidad Chambliss did. Trinidad Chambliss was roughly in the 2.5 second range. Mendoza's in the 3 second range. So if you can get pressure in that extra half seconds, a long, long time. And that's where Julian Sayin was. He was a little over 3 seconds. That could certainly change the game. And also what I've noticed with Mendoza is you have to make him run side to side. When he runs straight up the field, he is much faster as a straight line runner. Side to side, he goes from, he's 6'5". He does remind me a little bit of Bernie Kosar. The way he, goes up to the line. There's a slight comparison. He's not, he's not like Josh Allen. He's not fluid. He's not, he has a good arm. He doesn't have a rocket. Throws the ball a little, slightly unorthodox, not as sidearm as much as Bernie did, but running straight ahead, he's got good speed. Side to side, I think he's less than average. So that's something that I think I see that maybe the defensive staff from Miami sees also. They might have their rushers, their interior tackles, be more of, just make sure that, he doesn't escape up the middle, and get your hands up and let the two guys from the outside do their work. So, and then maybe the biggest advantage that Miami has, and this might be worth a point and a half, Corey Heatherman was on the staff for 3 years.
That's right.
So, I don't know if they're going to bring that up on the telecast, but to me, that is very important. And he certainly knows the way Kurt Cignetti thinks. So is Kurt Cignetti, going to do what he does pretty much all the time? If he does, Corey Heatherman, I think we'll have some pretty good intel to how to, I wouldn't say stop him, but how to contain his offense. And I think the key is to keep them under probably 25 points, and you got a chance to win the game. And or is he going to try to change it up and go against what he usually does best? So that's the chess match on that side of the ball. And Miami's done well, so far, in first half of games. And I think that's the key also. If Miami falls behind by double digits, they're in trouble. Everyone is against them. But against Texas A&M, they held them scoreless in the first half. Wind was partially a factor. They held Ohio State and Ole Miss also to nothing in the first two possessions. So those are some things that I see from the defensive side of the ball and how they're going to look at trying to contain this Indiana offense, which has been explosive. And I went and looked at the film, 3 times they were held under, their averages.
Yeah.
Penn State 27, and they were very lucky to win that game on a last-second catch. I don't know if it was third or fourth down, a one-handed catch back of the end zone. 13 against Ohio State and 20 against Iowa. And you got to think that we're somewhere in the mix there as far as our defensive talent, the way we've been able to play defense against some of these better offenses.
It's divisional round time in the NFL playoffs, and FanDuel is in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bet feel that way too. Visit FanDuel.com, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back into the Big 6 and 60. The Celtics went into Miami and came out on top after heading into the fourth quarter down by 10. John Corrales with Locked On Celtics tells us how Boston made the comeback.
The story of the game, which is the just god-awful beginning, Anthony Simons making history, and second chance points. Those were the things that saved the Celtics. The Celtics fell behind by 19. That first quarter was, I can't even begin to accurately describe it without violating a bunch of rules and making you probably swerve off the road. It's just, the joke would be for me to start talking and bleeping out all of the things, to be one long tone of all the things to describe how bad the Celtics looked, which is surprising to me. I guess it shouldn't be, because it's 2 nights in Miami. That Miami flu is a real thing. I would not be surprised if the Celtics found their way to a good time last night. And hey, that's how it goes, right? They would not be the first team. They would not be the last. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I wasn't there. So I don't know. But it sure looked like it. It sure looked like they were out. It sure looked like they came in not feeling right, not looking like themselves, because they turned the ball over like crazy. They couldn't hit shots. Jaylen Brown looked like he was still asleep. It was awful. So the Celtics fell behind by 19. And then Anthony Simons comes in. This wasn't just, oh, wow, Anthony got hot, 18-point fourth quarter, which is what he had. It was a 39-point game where every time he checked in, he was bailing the Celtics out. It really was like first quarter, he comes in, Celtics were down 19, cut it eventually down to 11. Celtics fall behind a little bit more, get it down to 10 at halftime. Celtics get down a little bit in the third quarter. It goes up to like 15 or 16 or whatever. Here comes Anthony. Let's get it back down to 10. It was very much like a dad just helping a kid ride a bike or learn how to ice skate or something, where the Celtics were just wobbly and falling over themselves, and Simons had to come in and be like, no, we're just going to prop you up a little bit. And then at the end, he was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. Or maybe it's more like a science project where the whole thing, which is, oh, we're going to make a solar system and we're not going to argue about whether Pluto is or isn't a planet. We're going to just do this. Oh, you dropped that. Okay, no problem. I'm going to help you put this. And then at the end, it's like, you know what? I'm done. This thing is due tomorrow. I'm going to put this thing together. We're just going to put your name on it. You're going to get an A. Thank you. Goodbye. That's my analogy for this game. Anthony just did everything. He got super hot in this game. He was, let's see, what did he shoot from three? 7 of 16. So 13 of 28 overall. The 39 points is the most scored by a Celtic off the bench in history. So that's obviously anytime you can do something historic for the Celtics, that was that's really great. So Simons comes in and 6 of 6 from the line. He had a couple of free throws at the end to ice the game. 4 rebounds, 4 assists. And here's the thing with Simons. Joe Mazzulla is so great with this because this was an offensive explosion. He helped the Celtics. He saved them. This was absolute. Without Anthony Simons, this would have been, honestly, it might have been a 40-point loss. This was, they had no answers from Bam Adebayo early on. Bam was just destroying the Miyush Keita. Then Garza came in, he was destroying Garza. And I was like, can we maybe try Jordan Walsh on him? Can you try somebody else on him and just maybe prevent him from getting off the dribble and destroying you? They had no answers for Norm Powell. They just couldn't. It was terrible. So without Simons, they would have lost by who knows how much. It would have been over at halftime. But Joe Mazzulla is like, hey, yeah, the scoring is great, but his defense, he had a steal. He had that steal was so great. And the rebounding was, in traffic, and that was so good, and blah, blah, blah. Like, Joe Mazzulla absolutely refuses to credit, to praise Anthony Simons without mentioning the defense. And he does the same thing with Sam Hauser, actually. He just will not let anybody be one-sided on in their assessment of Simons. And he does have a bit of a point. Like, Simons has improved his defense and has been has been less of a one-dimensional player than he has in the past. So but Simons was just incredible and was like the main reason why the Celtics were able to stay in this game, but also not just the only reason, though. The main reason, but not the only reason. Celtics 31-7 in second chance points. And honestly, I didn't go back and total them up, but a lot of Simons' shots were second chances. Like, the reason why the Celtics were up to 31 on their second chance points, they were 10 of 15 on second chance opportunities, because Simons was hitting a lot of these shots. Like, Simons got a bunch of second chances. And I think ultimately the efforts by Jordan Walsh, by Luka Garza, Ugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman got in there for an offensive rebound. You had everybody except for Anthony Simons had at least one offensive rebound. Those second chances were critical to the Celtics, because you don't get a lot of those opportunities. Anthony Simons doesn't get 28 shots if the second chances weren't there, and the Celtics don't win that margin, right? They had 91 shots overall. You have 4 more shots to make 2 more than the Miami Heat. They were 41 of 91. The Heat were 39 of 87. The Celtics 13 of 39 from 3. Miami 15 of 42. Now their shooting early really looked like it was going to destroy the Celtics. The first quarter was 6 of 12 for Miami. And if it wasn't for Simons coming in for that, 11 points, like, look at the first quarter. Jaylen Brown, 1 of 4 3-points. Sam Hauser had the first 4 points. Like it was a 4-3 lead for the Celtics. Funny, Hauser was responsible for both leads. He had the 2 points, the 2 baskets to make it 4-3, and then he hit the 3-pointer on a pass from Simons, which, when we come back, we'll talk about like the gravity of Simons, and before we get to the individual performances, because it was the gravity of Simons that allowed Sam to hit that 3-pointer to take the lead. But the Celtics got kind of nothing in that first quarter from their starters, but it was 11 points from Simons, 5 from Luka Garza.
That's all for today's Big 6 in 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, or on campus going up every weekend, just like we do here. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA, the Big 3 in 30 NFL, or the Big 3 in 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.